Captain Ji-woo stood in the administrative office on Kepler Base and read the message on the screen. His dark eyes narrowed as he scrolled through the words. An exchange program, non-human integration, cultural understanding, one alien cadet assigned directly to his platoon. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. This was exactly what he did not need. The 47th Platoon was the best unit on the base. They trained harder than other soldiers. They followed orders without question. They worked together like a single machine, each person knowing exactly what the others would do in any situation. They had trained across 3 different colony worlds. They had seen real combat. And now, some politician thousands of miles away wanted to add a non-human to their team. "This is a disaster," Minho said when Ji-woo told him the news. Minho was the sergeant, the second in charge of the platoon. He had been a soldier for 20 years and had learned not to trust easily. He was standing in the small office with Ji-woo, reading the same message. "It's an order," Ji-woo said simply. "We don't have a choice." "We always have choices," Minho replied, but his face showed that he knew this wasn't true. They would have to accept the alien cadet and make it work. That was how the military operated. You received an order, and you followed it. The cadet was supposed to arrive the next morning. Neither man slept well that night. When the transport ship landed, Ji-woo ordered the entire platoon to stand in formation to greet the new member. 23 soldiers stood in perfect lines, wearing their gray uniforms, faces forward. Some of them whispered to each other, curious and nervous about what they would see. The ship's door opened with a loud hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she appeared. Kira was tall, much taller than any human in the formation. She stood 7 feet high with blue skin that seemed to shine in the morning light. She had 4 arms, 2 powerful legs, and a face that looked almost human, except for the sharp features and the way her eyes glowed faintly with intelligence. She wore the standard-issue gray training uniform, and it fit her perfectly, suggesting that someone had prepared for her arrival carefully. She stepped down from the transport with perfect military posture. Her movements were smooth and controlled. She did not look confused or scared. She did not look like someone who had just arrived at a strange new place. She looked like a soldier. She walked straight to Captain Ji-woo and stopped in front of him. Her 4 arms remained at her sides. She stood at attention. "Guest Cadet Kira, reporting for duty, sir," she said. Her voice was lower than a human voice, but clear and strong. She did not demand anything. She did not ask for special treatment. She simply stated who she was and what she was there to do. Ji-woo felt something shift inside him. This was not what he had expected. "Welcome to the 47th Platoon," he said, keeping his voice formal. "We will begin your training immediately." Over the next week, Kira participated in everything the platoon did. She ran the same distance as the other soldiers, carrying the same weight. She practiced with weapons that were designed for human hands, and somehow, using her 4 arms, she made it work better than most humans could. She learned the names of every soldier in less than 2 days. She never complained. She never asked for rest. She never said that something was difficult. Sergeant Min-ho watched her carefully. He had worked with many soldiers, and he could usually tell which ones were good and which ones would fail under pressure. Kira did not fit into any category he had ever seen. She was not showing off her strength. She was not trying to prove anything. She was simply doing the job exactly as she was told, with perfect focus. On the 7th day, during weapons training, something happened that changed how the platoon thought about their new member. Platoon leader Tae-sung was showing Kira how to use a human rifle. He explained that it was designed for 2 hands, and he was not sure if she could manage it. Kira listened to his instructions carefully. Then she picked up the rifle, loaded it, and fired at the target. Every single shot hit the center. Perfect accuracy, perfect form. "How did you do that?" Tae-sung asked, looking shocked. Kira handed the rifle back to him. "I was taught to listen," she said. "You showed me what to do. I did it." That night, something important happened. The soldiers did not use the word cadet when they talked about Kira. Instead, they simply called her by her name, like they did with each other. This was a small thing, but it meant something. It meant they were starting to see her as part of their group. Then came the patrol that changed everything. It was supposed to be routine. Tae-sung took 8 soldiers, including Kira, to check the fence line around the base. The job usually took 2 hours. They would see nothing. They would return safely. This was what everyone expected. But at 14 hot hours, the base received a message. The patrol had come under fire from separatist forces who had moved closer to the base than anyone thought. Tae-sung was injured. The soldiers were in trouble. Ji-woo immediately gathered the response team. He selected Min-ho, Da-jung, and Hai-il, the strongest and most experienced soldiers. He was about to move out when he saw Kira standing at the edge of the group, looking at him. "You need me," she said. It was not a question. Ji-woo did not waste time arguing. They loaded into the transport and raced toward the fence line. When they arrived, they found Tae-sung sitting against a rock with blood on his leg. The other soldiers were in defensive positions, firing at enemies they could not see clearly in the rocky landscape. The situation was dangerous, and it was getting worse every second. But when Kira jumped from the transport, something changed. She did not hesitate or look afraid. She simply moved toward the enemy positions with absolute confidence. Her forearms allowed her to carry supplies and return fire at the same time. She pulled Hai-il to safety when a bullet came close to him. She helped one of the younger soldiers stand up and move to a better position. Within minutes, the enemy forces retreated. It was over. As they carried the injured soldiers back to the medical center, Ji-woo realized something important. This alien cadet had not hesitated for even a second. She had not thought about whether she should help. She had just moved forward and done what was needed. She had moved like someone who had spent her whole life protecting others. In the medical center, Tae-sung looked at Kira with completely different eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. "You do not need to thank me," Kira replied. "You would have done the same for me." It was that moment, Ji-woo thought later, when Kira truly stopped being a guest. She became part of the platoon. She became family. Min-ho found Ji-woo alone in his office that evening. The sergeant sat down without waiting for permission. "She's not what I expected," Min-ho said. "No," Ji-woo agreed. "She's better." "What happens now?" Min-ho asked. Ji-woo looked at the captain's insignia on his uniform. "Now we teach her everything. We make her a real soldier. We make her one of us." Min-ho nodded. For the first time since receiving the message about the exchange program, he smiled. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the colony. On the base, soldiers moved between buildings. In the distance, Kira walked alone, looking at the sky above the strange new world she now called home. Her 4 arms hung at her sides. Her face was calm. She did not know it yet, but she had already earned something more valuable than any rank or title. She had earned respect, and that was only the beginning. 3 months after Kira arrived, the order came from command. The 47th Platoon was being sent to Kepler Station, where separatist forces had taken control of an important facility. The mission was simple on paper, but everyone knew the truth. This was going to be dangerous. People would probably die. Ji-woo called all his soldiers together in the main briefing room. Maps covered the table. Images of the station appeared on the screens. He explained what they needed to do. The platoon would go in fast, secure the control center, and get out before reinforcements could arrive. Speed was critical. Any delay would cost lives. "This is not a training exercise," Ji-woo said, looking at each face. "We will face real combat. We will face soldiers who want to kill us. Some of you may be injured. I want to be clear about that before we go." The room was silent. Everyone understood. However, Jiwoo continued, I have the best soldiers in the entire colonial military. I have soldiers I trust with my life. And I have someone who has proven herself in real combat situations. We will go in together. We will work together. And we will bring everyone home, all of us. His eyes rested on Kira for just a moment, then moved away. The transport reached Kepler Station at dawn. The station floated in space, a massive structure of metal and equipment. It looked like a city made of machinery. The Separatists controlled 3 levels. The platoon needed to reach the control center on level 7. The first firefight happened on level 2. The soldiers moved through corridors, their weapons ready, eyes sharp. Then suddenly, gunfire exploded around them. Enemy soldiers appeared from behind sealed doors. The platoon returned fire immediately, moving to cover positions, working perfectly together. But then Private Da Jung got caught in the open. A burst of gunfire came at him from a distant position. He could not reach safety in time. He was exposed, and the enemy soldiers saw him. That was when Kira moved. She did not run randomly. She did not make a dramatic charge. Instead, she watched where the enemy fire was coming from. She calculated the angle. She saw exactly what needed to happen, and then she did it. Using her 4 arms, Kira held her own weapon in 2 hands, while using her other 2 arms to grab heavy metal containers and throw them with incredible force at the enemy position. Each throw was perfectly aimed. The enemies had to take cover from the falling containers. In that moment of confusion, Da Jung ran to safety. "Thank you, ma'am," he said breathlessly, his heart pounding from how close he had come to being shot. Kira did not answer. She was already moving to the next position, already calculating the next threat, already thinking 3 steps ahead of what the enemy would do. The platoon fought upward through the station. Level 3, Level 4, Level 5. With each level, Kira did things that made the other soldiers shake their heads in disbelief. On Level 4, Corporal Hay-Ill's rifle jammed at the worst possible moment. He was covering a door while other soldiers moved past. His weapon would not work. He was about to be exposed to enemy fire. But Kira was already there, her body moving in front of him, her 4 arms managing 2 weapons at once, covering his position while he ran to get a new rifle. On Level 5, she saw an enemy soldier about to throw an explosive device into a room full of her teammates. She did not hesitate. She jumped in front of the explosion. The blast hit her directly, burning blue skin, throwing her backward against a wall. For a moment, everyone froze. The alien soldier was down, but Kira stood back up. The burns were serious, but she did not fall. She did not stop fighting. She moved forward as if the pain did not even exist. Captain Jiwoo saw this, and something inside him understood. This was not just a soldier. This was someone who had dedicated her entire life to the idea of protecting others. This was someone for whom duty meant more than physical suffering. Level 6 was almost empty. The enemy had retreated upward, gathering all their forces at the control center. The platoon was close now. Then came the final assault. The doors to the control center opened and enemy soldiers poured out. Heavy fire, explosions. The sound was deafening. 3 soldiers went down immediately, hit Kyung-hee on the shoulder, Park Min-jun in the leg, and Lee Ji-ho in the side. The platoon's forward momentum stopped. They were pinned. They could not advance, but they also could not go back. They needed to move forward or the mission would fail. Jiwoo knew what had to happen. "We need a corridor," he said, but even he did not know how they would create one against such heavy fire. Then he heard Kira's voice. "Cover me!" Before anyone could answer, she stood up, fully exposed, and charged directly at the enemy positions. Her 4 arms fired in multiple directions at once. 1 arm carried ammunition, 1 arm provided covering fire for other soldiers. It was impossible to do what she was doing. It should not have been possible. But she did it anyway. Bullets tore through her uniform. 1 struck her shoulder, 1 struck her leg, but she did not stop. She did not slow down. She screamed something in her native language, a battle cry that sounded like nothing human ears had ever heard, and she kept moving forward. The enemy soldiers were so shocked at her bravery, so overwhelmed by her four-armed assault, that their fire became less accurate. And in that moment of chaos, the platoon moved. They advanced. They took better positions. They turned the tide. Within minutes, the control center was secure. In the medical bay afterward, Ji-woo found Kira sitting on a medical bed while the doctor examined her wounds. She had been hit 5 times, 5 different bullet wounds, but she was sitting calmly, barely reacting to the pain as the doctor cleaned and bandaged each injury. "Why did you do that?" Ji-woo asked quietly. Kira looked at him with those glowing eyes. "Because my soldiers needed to advance," she said simply. "Because if we did not take that control center, more people would die. Because stopping the enemy was more important than my personal safety." "You could have died," Ji-woo said. "Yes," Kira agreed, "but I did not. And my platoon is alive. That is what matters." Ji-woo realized something in that moment. The officers and soldiers who had trained this alien cadet had taught her something essential about what it meant to be a human soldier. She understood duty. She understood sacrifice. She understood that the mission was more important than yourself. When the platoon returned to base, command was waiting to debrief them. The operation had been a complete success. Not a single soldier had died. Even the injured ones would recover fully. The officers wanted to know how this was possible. Usually, operations like this resulted in significant casualties. Ji-woo stood before them and explained simply, "We had a soldier who understood what service meant, a soldier who refused to let her teammates die, a soldier who showed us what real courage looks like." He paused and looked toward the door where Kira stood, still in her medical bandages, still refusing to rest. "Her name is Kira," Ji-woo continued, "and I would go into any battle with her by my side." That night, in the barracks, something quietly beautiful happened. Every single soldier in the 47th platoon began calling her ma'am instead of by her name alone. Not out of obligation, not out of military protocol. They did it because they loved her, because she had earned more respect than any rank could give, because she had shown them what it meant to truly be part of a family. Kira heard them calling her this, and something in her expression shifted. For just a moment, her alien face showed pure emotion, gratitude, belonging, the knowledge that she had finally found a place where she was wanted, where she was trusted, where she was home. 6 months after returning from Kepler Station, everything changed again. This time, it was not because of war or danger. It was because of simple, cruel luck. Captain Ji-woo was leading a routine patrol near the colony's perimeter. The area had been quiet for weeks. No threat reports, no sign of danger. The soldiers under his command were relaxed, confident, moving through the landscape like they had done hundreds of times before. Then the hidden explosive device went off. One moment, Ji-woo was walking forward, talking to Sergeant Min-ho about the supply shipment that was arriving the next day. The next moment, the world exploded around him. Shrapnel cut through the air like deadly rain. The explosion threw him to the ground. Pain shot through his chest and leg. When the medical team arrived, Ji-woo was conscious but badly injured. A metal fragment the size of a hand had buried itself in his chest. Another piece had torn through his leg muscle. The doctors said he would survive, but he would be out of combat for many months. That meant someone else had to take command of the 47th platoon. Lieutenant Kyung-soo was technically the senior officer available. He was competent, trained, and capable. But Ji-woo had always been the one who made the quick decisions, the instinctive choices that kept everyone alive. Kyung-soo was different. He was methodical. He thought carefully about every option. In normal situations, this was an excellent quality. But in combat, hesitation could kill. The first sign of trouble came during a mission to prevent separatist forces from establishing a new base in the northern sector. Kyung-soo studied the intelligence reports for 2 hours. He considered different approaches. He consulted with multiple officers. By the time he finally gave the order to advance, the separatists had moved their position. The platoon had to chase them through difficult terrain, losing the advantage of surprise. 2 soldiers were injured unnecessarily. It was not a disaster, but it was not good either. "We should have moved faster," Min-ho told Kira after the mission. They were in the armory, checking weapons, maintaining equipment. Min-ho spoke quietly, carefully, making sure no one else could hear. Kira was examining a rifle, her movements precise and practiced. "The lieutenant is learning," she said. "He is good at thinking. He just needs to learn when thinking should stop and action should begin." "Can you teach him that?" Min-ho asked. Kira looked at the sergeant. "I can help, but only if he is willing to listen." The next briefing for a significant operation was tense. Kyung-soo presented his plan to the gathered officers and squad leaders. It was careful and detailed, with backup plans and safety measures. It was also slow, giving the enemy time to prepare. Kira sat silently through the entire presentation. When Kyung-soo finished, he asked if there were questions. Kira raised her hand. Kyung-soo looked surprised. In all her time with the platoon, Kira had rarely spoken during formal briefings. "Sir, a question," she said formally. "The enemy has had intelligence about our operations for the past 3 weeks. Their movements suggest they know we will try to encircle them from the north. If we approach from that direction, we will likely face an ambush." Kyung-soo frowned. "The intelligence report suggests they are expecting us from the east." "Yes, sir," Kira agreed. "The intelligence reports do, but consider this. What if those intelligence reports are meant to be found? What if the enemy wanted us to see them?" The room became very quiet. Everyone understood what she was saying. It was a trap within a trap. Kyung-soo was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "What would you suggest?" "Kira?" "A different approach, sir. Faster movement, smaller team. Come from a direction they will not expect. Once we have their positions, then call for reinforcement from other units." Kyung-soo looked at the map. He considered what Kira had said. Then something shifted in his expression. He saw it. He understood. "Change the plan," he said to the room. "We will implement Kira's approach." The operation succeeded with minimal casualties. The enemy base was destroyed. No platoon members were killed. But something important had happened. Kyung-soo had realized that good leadership was not just about being smart or careful. It was about listening to people around you who had good ideas. And more importantly, it was about acting on those ideas with confidence. After that, Kyung-soo began seeking Kira's input on tactical decisions. Not because she was senior to him, she was not, but because her insight was valuable. And slowly, something remarkable happened. The platoon began to feel different under their combined leadership. It was still strong and disciplined, but it also felt like a family. Officers and soldiers would help each other without being asked. People would volunteer for dangerous assignments because they trusted their leaders to keep them safe. Word of the 47th Platoon's success spread through the military. Other units began requesting transfers to serve under Kyung-soo and the strange alien sergeant everyone called Ma'am. Min-ho saw this change happening, and one day he pulled Kira aside. "I was wrong about you when you first arrived," he said bluntly. The old sergeant was not one for pretty words. "You were cautious," Kira replied. "That was appropriate. I was unknown." "You earned my respect," Min-ho continued. "But more than that, you changed how I think about leadership. I used to believe that being a good soldier meant following orders and not asking questions. You showed me that real strength means caring enough about your people to sometimes respectfully challenge bad decisions. You showed me that a true leader is someone who helps their people become better than they already are." Kira did not speak for a moment. When she did, her voice was different, softer, more human. "You did the same for me," she said. "You showed me that humans, despite your short lives and limited physical strength, have something that makes you dangerous in the best way. You have the ability to care about people you are not related to. You have the ability to choose your family. When I came here, I was alone. But you and your soldiers chose to make me part of your family. That is a gift beyond words." The two soldiers stood in the armory in silence, understanding each other completely. Meanwhile, in the recovery center, Captain Jiwoo was regaining his strength. The doctors said he would be able to return to light duty within 2 months. But Jiwoo was impatient. He wanted to be back with his platoon. He wanted to see what Kira had been doing while he was away. When he finally returned to the barracks, he was shocked at what he found. The platoon was operating with perfect efficiency. Kyung-soo and Kira worked together like they had trained together for years. The soldiers were disciplined but not cold. They were strong but not cruel. They were everything a military unit should be. Jiwoo understood then that his injury had served a purpose. It had forced his platoon to learn to survive without him. More importantly, it had allowed Kira to help Kyung-soo become the kind of officer who could lead with both intelligence and heart. "Welcome back, sir," Kira said, saluting perfectly. Jiwoo returned the salute. "It looks like I was not missed," he said, but there was no sadness in his voice, only pride. "You were always missed," Kira said. "But your platoon learned to function without you. That is what you taught us to do. That is what a true leader creates. Not soldiers who depend on him, but soldiers who are strong enough to depend on each other." Jiwoo smiled. He realized something important. The Intergalactic Accord had sent them a guest cadet, but what they had gained was much, much more than that. They had gained a teacher. They had gained a soldier. They had gained a member of their family who would change not just their unit, but everyone who learned from her example. 1 year after Kira arrived at the 47th Platoon, everything became complicated in a way that none of them could have predicted. A classified briefing came through official military channels. The intelligence was clear and troubling. The separatist forces that the 47th Platoon had been fighting for months were receiving funding from somewhere unexpected. The money was coming from the Threxian government, Kira's own home government. Not just any Threxian government officials. High-ranking military commanders, people with real power and influence. Jiwoo received this information alone in his office. He read the classified document 3 times, hoping each time that the words would change. They did not. The truth was the truth, and it was painful. He called Kira into his office in the evening when no other soldiers were around. When she entered, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. The captain's face told her that. "Sit down," Jiwoo said. His voice was gentle, but Kira heard the pain underneath it. He showed her the document. She read it silently. Her 4 arms went completely still. Her glowing eyes seemed to dim slightly. "This is correct," she said finally. "I received indirect communication before I came to your base. My government was not pleased with my assignment to a human unit. They saw it as betrayal of species loyalty." "Why did you not tell us?" Jiwoo asked, not angrily but sadly. "Because I was not certain at first," Kira said carefully. "I hoped it was a mistake. I hoped that when I proved myself here, when I showed what could be achieved through cooperation between species, they would understand. I hoped they would see that I was bringing honor to Threx, not shame." "And now?" Jiwoo asked. Kira was silent for a long time. "Now I must choose," she said quietly. "I can return to Threx and try to convince my government that cooperation is better than conflict. Or I can stay here. And if I stay, I am choosing humans over my own species. I am choosing to fight against my government's interests." Jiwoo stood up and walked to the window. Below them, the lights of the base showed soldiers moving between buildings, going about their evening duties. Simple people doing their jobs, unaware of the complicated politics that threatened everything they had built together. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Kira stood and joined him at the window. "I want to stay," she said. "But I know the cost. If I stay and if we fight my government, I will become someone my people view as a traitor. My family will not understand. My culture will reject me." Jiwoo turned to look at her. "But you would have a new family, a new culture. These soldiers, the ones who call you ma'am, they are your people now. Would that be enough?" Kira looked at the blue-skinned alien next to him, so strong physically but showing emotional vulnerability in a way that was completely human. "Yes," she said. "It would be enough." The next operation took this choice from a question into reality. Military intelligence located a supply line that was funding the separatist forces. The supplies were coming from a neutral station in space, but they were being sent on behalf of Threxian government officials. The 47th Platoon was ordered to intercept the supply shipment. The night before the operation, Kira did not sleep. Jiwoo found her standing alone in the maintenance area, looking at her reflection in a polished metal surface. She was examining her own face as if seeing herself for the first time. "I will no longer be welcome on Threx after this," she said without turning around. "I will be marked as a traitor. My name will become a shameful thing." Jiwoo stepped beside her and looked at both their reflections, one human, one alien, standing together. "No," he said, "your name will become a symbol of someone who chose duty and honor over blood and politics, a symbol of what it means to be truly human, not in species, but in character." The operation was brutal and sad. The supply ship was defended by Threxian soldiers. When the 47th Platoon moved to intercept, there was combat. Soldiers died. Some were Threxian, some were human. All of them were people who had families waiting for them on distant worlds. Kira fought in this battle, and it was the hardest thing she had ever done. She was fighting against soldiers of her own species. She was fighting against people who shared her blood, but she fought them with the same precision and determination she brought to everything else, because the mission was right, because her people, the soldiers of the 47th Platoon, were counting on her. During the final assault on the control room of the supply ship, a Threxian soldier recognized Kira. He called out her name in shock. It was someone she knew. Someone from her military academy, someone she had trained with years ago. He did not fire at her immediately. Instead, he lowered his weapon and said something in the Threxian language. Kira heard it, and something inside her broke. Later, when all the fighting was over and the ship was secured, Jiwoo found Kira alone in a dark corridor. She was sitting on the floor, her forearms wrapped around herself in a way that looked almost human. There was a burn wound on her scaled shoulder. A plasma round had caught her during the combat. But more than the physical injury, she was injured on the inside. Emotionally, spiritually. The way humans could be injured by choice. Jiwoo sat down beside her without speaking. He did not try to comfort her with words. He just sat there, present, witnessing her pain. "My friend," Kira finally said, her voice barely audible, "told me that I had betrayed Threx. He said that I had become less than Threxian, that I was no longer part of our people, and then I had to fight him. I had to help capture him. I had to make sure that my government's plans would be exposed and fail." "You did what was right," Jiwoo said quietly. "I know," Kira replied. "But knowing something is right does not make it hurt less." Jiwoo extended his hand. Kira looked at it, then slowly placed one of her 4 hands in his. It was a strange gesture, human and alien together, but it meant something powerful. It meant acceptance. It meant understanding. It meant that she was not alone. Back on the base, the other soldiers of the 47th Platoon learned what Kira had done. They learned that she had fought against her own people. They learned that she had sacrificed her connection to her entire species to stay true to her duty. And something quiet but important happened. Every single soldier went to her. Not formally, not with ceremony, but in small groups during breaks, in the evening hours. They told her that they understood, that they respected her choice, that they were honored to serve with her, that she was one of them now, not as a guest, but as family. Minho found her in the medical bay where her wound was being treated. The old sergeant looked at her with eyes that held deep understanding. "My father was a soldier," he said. "He taught me something I never forgot. He said that being a soldier is not about defending a country or a government. It is about protecting your brothers and sisters. It is about choosing the people next to you over everything else. You have done that. You have become the best soldier I have ever known." Kira looked at the old man, and for the first time since the operation, she smiled. Not a small smile, but a real one. A smile that said she understood, that she had finally, completely, become part of something greater than herself. That night, in the barracks, the entire platoon gathered quietly. They did not march or salute. They did not make speeches. They simply sat together, in silence, in the presence of someone they loved, someone who had sacrificed everything to be with them. And in that silence, words were not necessary. The understanding between them was complete. 6 months after the classified operation, the official announcement came from the highest levels of the Colonial Military Command. Kira was being promoted to platoon sergeant, not as a guest, not as a temporary position, as a permanent rank in the human military structure. The promotion papers were official and stamped with the seal of the Intergalactic Accord and the Colonial Defense Authority. She would be the first non-human to hold such a rank in the colonial military. It was a historic moment. The formal promotion ceremony took place in the main assembly area of the base. Officers from multiple units attended. Medical staff lined the walls. Soldiers stood in perfect formation. The entire base seemed to hold its breath. Captain Jiwoo, now fully recovered from his injuries, stood ready to conduct the ceremony. He held the rank insignia, the symbol of Kira's new position. It was a small metal piece, but it represented something enormous. It represented trust. It represented the belief that a being from another species could lead human soldiers with honor and competence. Kira stood at attention, her forearms rigid at her sides. She wore the dress uniform that had been specially tailored for her blue-scaled form. Around her, soldiers she had bled with and fought beside looked at her with pride. "Cadet Kira," Jiwoo said formally, his voice carrying across the assembly area. "Step forward." Kira stepped forward. Her glowing eyes showed no emotion, but those who knew her well could see the significance of the moment in the slight tremor of her massive frame. Jiwoo pinned the rank insignia to her uniform. It was a simple action, but everyone present understood it was life-changing. For Kira, for the military, for the future of how different species would work together. "You are now Sergeant Kira," Jiwoo said. "You carry the responsibility of this rank with honor and duty. These soldiers are your charge. Their safety is your responsibility. Their growth is your mission. Do you accept this duty?" "I do, sir," Kira responded, her voice strong and clear across the silent assembly area. Then something happened that was not part of the official ceremony. Every single soldier in the formation, led by Sergeant Minho, rendered the formal salute. 23 soldiers from the 47th Platoon, plus officers and personnel from other units, all saluting in perfect synchronization, honoring their new sergeant. Kira returned the salute with all 4 arms positioned perfectly, and for just a moment, something in her alien face shifted. emotion. Deep, profound emotion. The recognition that she had achieved something she never thought possible when she first arrived at this base as a guest. That evening, the platoon organized a celebration. It was not official military business. It was something done between soldiers who had become family. Minho brought bottles of a strong drink he had kept hidden for special occasions. Dajung prepared food from his home region. Hai-Il brought music on a small device that played songs from various worlds. In the barracks, surrounded by her platoon, Kira received gifts. Small things, meaningful things. A photograph in a military frame. A piece of embroidered cloth in Threxian colors and human insignia combined. A weapon from one of her first combat operations, polished and mounted as a memorial of what they had survived together. The night grew late. Soldiers who had been drinking and laughing eventually drifted away to sleep. Minho approached Kira, moving slowly because age had started to affect his joints. "I am proud of you," the old sergeant said simply. "I would not be here without you," Kira replied. "You taught me that being part of a unit meant more than just following orders. You taught me what it meant to care about people." Minho nodded. "That is what the best soldiers know. Now you must teach that to new soldiers. You must make sure that everyone who comes into this platoon understands what we believe." As the sergeant in charge of the 47th Platoon, Kira's life changed. She was no longer just a soldier following instructions. She was responsible for training, discipline, and growth of every person under her command. The first real test came when a new recruit arrived. Private Teo, a young human soldier fresh from basic training. When he reported to the platoon and was told that his sergeant was a non-human alien, his face showed clear displeasure. He did not voice it, but it was obvious. Kira observed this reaction without comment. She assigned Teo to every difficult task she could. Training runs in the hottest part of the day, equipment maintenance during the longest hours, guard duty during the worst weather conditions. But she did not assign these things as punishment. She assigned them as teaching. Every task she gave him, she explained the purpose. She showed him how doing difficult things built character. She demonstrated how discipline created freedom. After 3 weeks, Teo requested a transfer to a different unit. But before he left, he asked to speak with Kira privately. "Why did you work me so hard?" he asked. Kira looked at the young soldier with her glowing eyes. "Because you arrived here with a closed mind. You believed that my species made me unable to be a good leader. You were wrong. I could have ignored your prejudice, but instead I wanted to teach you. I wanted to show you that judgment based on appearance is weakness." "You succeeded," Teo said quietly. "I see that now, and I want to stay in the 47th Platoon, if you will have me." Kira nodded. "Then you are welcome. The question you needed to answer was not whether an alien could be a good sergeant. The question was whether you could be good enough to serve under one. I believe you can be." Teo's expression changed completely. He stayed with the platoon. And he became one of the most loyal soldiers Kira ever trained. This pattern repeated over the next months. New soldiers arrived with prejudices. Kira addressed these prejudices not with anger or punishment, but with challenging work and clear explanation. Some soldiers learned quickly, some took longer, but eventually all of them understood. They learned that their sergeant's species did not matter. What mattered was that she cared about them. What mattered was that she led by example. What mattered was that she would stand beside them in any situation. The 47th Platoon's reputation grew. Other units started requesting transfers to serve under Sergeant Kira. Military command noticed. The casualty rate of the platoon was among the lowest in the entire colonial military. Mission success rate was among the highest, and more importantly, morale was better than any other unit. One day, Colonel Park visited the base to observe the 47th Platoon in action. He watched the soldiers train. He observed their precision. He noted their perfect coordination. And most importantly, he saw the way they looked at their sergeant with genuine respect and affection. After observing a full training cycle, Colonel Park requested a private conversation with Kira. "I have read reports about you," he said, "but seeing it in person is different. Your soldiers would follow you into any situation. They trust you completely." "They are good soldiers," Kira replied simply. "I try to be worthy of their trust." "You are more than worthy," Colonel Park said. "You are something rare in the military. You are a leader who makes other people want to be better. Your government has requested that you remain in this position permanently. The Threxian government has decided to support human-alien military integration. They want you to become a symbol of what is possible when we work together." Kira was silent for a moment. Then she said, "I am still a soldier. I am still a member of the 47th Platoon. That will not change, will it?" "No," Colonel Park said with a smile. "You will still be their sergeant. You will still lead them. But your importance will grow. You will be the face of cooperation between species." That evening, Kira shared this news with the platoon. She told them what the future might hold. She told them that their work together was creating something larger than themselves. Minho stood up and raised his glass. "To the best sergeant we could ever hope for," he said. "To a woman. Yes, we call you woman now, not creature or alien, because that is what you are, who came to us as a guest and became our family." Every soldier raised their glass in agreement. Kira looked around at the faces of her people, the humans who had become her family, the soldiers who trusted her completely. She realized that all the struggle, all the difficulty of being an alien in a human military had led to this moment. A moment where she was not just accepted, a moment where she was loved.